Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of CleanTechies, the podcast, as always sponsored and made possible by Next Wave Partners. On today's episode, I spoke with Bakur Kvezereli of ZTractor, founder of ZTractor, and actually this is his second venture in Silicon Valley that he's going at, and his first one was quite successful. And it was really just an interesting discussion about what he's doing. So ZTractor in general is an autonomous electric tractor company. They're basically designing these tractors, and now they're working with a third party to manufacture them. So again, a lot of really interesting aspects as to what these electric and autonomous tractors can do for agriculture at large. But again, super interesting call with Bakur. He's got a really cool background originally from Georgia, the country, and just worked in banking and worked in finance for a while. Then ended up getting into the startup space in the States. So again, really interesting fellow, and I hope you enjoy today's episode as much as I did.
Okay, let's start it.
All right, very good. Welcome to the podcast, Bakur. I appreciate you joining us. I guess, just for everybody listening, could you, give us a quick background on just very briefly, we'll go into detail later, on what you're doing now, a little bit of how you got here, and just kind of the general things that are important to you.
So, first of all, thank you for this opportunity and inviting me to talk about our innovation and the product. It's we got to this basically stage through the multiple testing and long way into the product. Product development takes time, and every product has own specifics, but once you're building something from the industry, which is agriculture in this case, you need to get industry's involvement, you need to get the feedback from the stakeholders and see the real use cases and basically play the role there, which will fix the gaps for the people who will be using this. So this was what our approach was, and because of that, it took a little bit longer than planned probably. But we, on a daily basis, we were interacting with farmers and getting to know what are the problems besides just changing motor with the electric. Replacing engine with the motor and making autonomous features available. And I think this was very important journey for us to learn about customer needs.
Yeah, so I guess could you maybe kind of, again, for a lot of the average people listening, many people aren't specifically in depth into the agriculture space. I know I grew up kind of with a farming background to some extent, but could you kind of just describe what exactly, how is your technology, how is your autonomous tractors, how are they helping innovate and, solve problems for farmers? Like, what are some of the major problems that you're solving?
So there are multiple problems in farms, but the most painful today are related to the labor shortage or agricultural workforce migration inside the country or globally. And basically, there are many cases in California today when the tractor is parked, there's no driver, and you need to find alternative way to continue farming. And that's one big thing which we fix for farmers and for the farming community. And I think this is in many cases, it allows farmer to continue producing same crop like they were producing before, and they don't need to change the crop with the need of using or choosing the crop which is requiring less labor, less intensive. And because this was the only option before, and now automation can fix that. This is one. Second is that zero emission is the thing for not only for the farmer, but also down to the entire value chain and the supply chain towards the customer and towards the grocery store shelf. That's very important for every stakeholder in this chain. And that's another thing which we offer with our technology to the farmer.
How much, I'm curious, what is kind of the impact in terms of if everybody hypothetically, all major farming switches to electric tractors of some sort, what could be the positive impact on helping reverse climate change with negative carbon emissions? Do you know what the total kind of possible impact is?
Are we talking about the worldwide?
Yeah, I mean, unless there's specific markets that you're more familiar with.
Yeah, like there are a few things which are playing a role in this. I don't have this total number on top of my head, but what's playing the role there, we need to understand that tractors have the higher emissions because of their large size engine and large size basically operation on a relevantly in a small area, which is your own farm. That's where it operates. So the concentration of emissions is very high in the farm. There the workers work where in some cases you live, and it's not a highway, right, where it's a dedicated place for driving, while this is like private property where you probably live and you have people working there and you have emissions concentrate there. So you are eliminating that, which is the big step forward. And on a global level, as you said and asked, this is probably as big as any single domain like bus or trucks or any other domains of the vehicles because of its size, right? It's a engine size is large, the horsepower is large, the speed is low, so it's the emissions are higher basically.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I'm curious too. What do you see as kind of the trend in farming? Because I've spoken with a couple other guests, I believe, on the idea of getting away from industrial farming to more localized supply chains in order to help reduce overall emissions as well. Like, is that something that ZTractor is trying to accomplish too? Are these tractors mainly going to be used for smaller farms, bigger farms? Like, where can you guys add value there as well?
Look, we have customers who owned the farm but never were involved in management. They were mostly like renting out the land, or somebody was leasing their land or something like that. And now with our tractor, with ZTractor, they can start farming. That's an enabler for some people to start farming and do their wherever the farm was producing with their own capacity locally, right, with their family. So that's why it is the shift towards more local, but at the same time, we need to understand that cost driver for a food or vegetables and everything like fresh grown in a farm is tractor one of them, right? It's inputs and labor, but tractor is one of the contributors to that cost. And this is also like, it's a cost saving. And for some farmers, it will make them more competitive. For example, they're growing something which is less competitive on this specific local location in, I don't know, let's mention anything in California, but because they can produce it more effectively now, becoming more competitive, so they are choosing the crop based on this market demand and like competitiveness and efficiency. So this is, I think, another important aspect of this business.
Okay, got it. Yeah. So how is the model working for when farmers? Again, I spent a few months on a farm, and I think it'd be curious to understand when you talk about cost savings, what are some of the things that you should mention? Because I'm from Wisconsin originally, and a lot of the farming there is kind of old school mentality. Not huge farms, a lot of smaller farms. What are some of the pros to having an electric tractor for these, smaller farms? Like, what are the objections that you're seeing, and how do you overcome those to kind of explain to them the value of switching over?
First, you can farm on a bigger area. You can increase area of farming with this approach because the tractor's working hours are longer. There is no lunch break for the tractor because it's unmanned completely, and so it can effectively work like 24/7. Right? This is one thing which in some cases farmers choose. Farmers make a choice of ZTractor because of that. In many other cases, it's labor shortage just forces farmer to reduce the operation size, and if this is the available to them, that's a solution, right? Another reason why they consider, or like it's part of a value proposition also, it's a soil compaction, right? With our tractor, the soil compaction is lower, which basically improves the quality of the topsoils over time. So these are the immediate benefits which they can see, and they basically observe while switching to ZTractor.
And I'm curious, what are the, I guess, in terms of, let's say, a small farm, maybe a 300-acre farm or a 400-acre farm wants to kind of add one of these tractors to their fleet. What is the education going to be required for the farms to learn how to run these, right? Again, assuming that they're using, old International Harvester tractors or something like that. Like, what are they going to have to learn? Are there any major technology upgrades that they're going to have to, bring into their farming operation to be able to achieve and make it worth it?
So the it's done by the software, and you have a very intuitive UX on your tablet, which basically we took some of the elements of the tractor uh, drivers dashboards, right? Which,
Mm-hmm.
for example, the speed we adjust with the turtle versus the rabbit. If you've seen on the tractor, those buttons. So these are like it's a blend of what's have been done in the tractor on tractor's dashboard, but also it's in some ways it's also gamized. You can like it's kind of game also. You can pre-program, you can plan, and then you see the accomplishments down the line. I think this makes it more intuitive because you see entire plan for a day and you see where the tractor is right now, so you know what stage it is. And I think that's we obviously provide the manual, and it's uh, fairly easy to pick up. I think one day or even maybe a
Yeah.
few hours would be enough to pick up and start driving it safely and effectively in terms of like using implement.
Okay, got it. And then is there any kind of like technology upgrades that a typical farm would need to, implement in order to be able to support this? Because I'm also curious at some point to get into.
I think a charger, that's an only thing what's new for farm in farm, and maybe like parking in the shade. Probably it's yeah, that's
So it's
two things
pretty
probably
minimal.
which
Wow.
you probably need to consider.
Yeah, that's interesting. So it's not, there's really
It,
hardly any obstacles, it seems, to going with this. I'm curious also in general, I think you alluded to it when we chatted before about IoT, right? How it can integrate the data collection. So what do you see as kind of like, again, what can your tractor accomplish currently regarding data collection to help better your farming practices, but also like, what can it be? What can this lead to in the industry of farming and agriculture that can really make huge leaps and bounds and just change the way things are done?
so before, historically, the data which is coming from the tractor driver is extremely useful for the farm operation and planning for agronomists, which are asking the driver how was the quality of the planting, right? How was the depth? Were you in the right depth while you were planting corn, right? For example, or how the land was coming when you were doing some, I know, disking, for example, right? And
Mhm.
so many factors can play a role, like moisture of the soil, the weather, many different aspects there, and they always ask the driver. And now instead of asking driver, you have this data which is collecting more systematic way on your tablet, and then it's stored there. And then it can be also analytics done behind that, which is like sorting and finding the useful data, what's useful for you. And I think this is what really makes big difference. And this data is useful for on a farm level for a farmer, but also this is useful on a broader scale in planning farming on the county level or in your bigger, larger operations where the companies own land in 7, 10, 20 countries, and they have operations and seasons are different, right? And you can plan it much better if you have a real-time data from your farm in Brazil and you are in US and you have also farm, I don't know, in Canada, and that all comes together in one place for a farmer.
Okay. Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. Because I think that to me, this is something that I feel like is going to be a big challenge, especially for a lot of the old school farmers, especially like where I'm from in Wisconsin. You know, bringing new technology to them is something that they're generally opposed to, because they've just done things a certain way, right, for a long time. So I think that I'm excited to see the way that even small farms can innovate due to technology like this, right? It's just a single farm can implement newer advanced technology such as the IoT aspect. I guess one thing too that I'm kind of just looking to understand is, have you guys done any analysis of the cost of ownership of the tractors, specifically in regards to fuel, right? Because I feel like that could be a really massive benefit, the cost of fueling a diesel tractor and maintenance throughout a year versus just charging, and probably, I'm assuming, a pretty minimal maintenance for these tractors. Could you talk a little bit about that?
It is, yeah. The total cost of ownership is going down in some cases, by close to 80%. And the
Wow.
reason is because in this tractor, you don't have the driver's insurance, right? There is no driver, so there is no driver insurance. There is saving on that, obviously, per unit. Of course, there is a saving on diesel, and because the charging is much cheaper. And then the most important, I think, saving is in the maintenance, right? Because electric tractors have fewer parts, and the diagnostics are done on board, which basically means that if something is close to failure, or if something is not working or getting close to its expiration date for whatever it can be, you have this notification, so you are aware if something is not functioning right or on a good efficiency. So you are aware of that, so you can prevent it, and this is also makes your cost lower. And as I mentioned, we made a calculation for a specific farmer just switching to electric autonomous, and the total cost of ownership was 76% less than diesel tractor.
Wow, that's crazy. That's cool to hear. I guess one thing that also comes to mind along that is the farm I spent time on. My uncle, for example, he loved to fix tractors, right? And he again was a mechanic, but this is a lot more electronic stuff. So do you see that there's going to be a tough kind of learning curve for some of these conventional farmers that are running smaller operations that have to maybe get a little bit more electronic knowledge? Or is it going to be, are you guys planning to have a nice kind of like the Tesla, they have like those, service vehicles that will come out and help? Is that kind of part of the plan of what your business model is, to be able to service these regardless of where they
California,
are?
yeah, in California we have service, but in other states we partner with other companies which are in machinery or vehicle business, and they provide the service for us. We are in the process of figuring out how it can be done better. But the good news, and I think that's a big advantage we have, the troubleshooting can be done remotely from our head office. Our head office can troubleshoot any tractor anywhere worldwide on the software side, but also detect the problems with the hardware and, for example, send you the part and you replace this part yourself, and there is no cost related to maintenance.
Oh wow, that's so that can also speed up the process, because I know some of the times, like the biggest issue is we'd have a tractor go down in the field and you had to go out there and figure it out and then drive to a dealership and get something. So that's awesome. Um, I guess I'm generally curious. I want to back up a little bit. I know we didn't do it a whole lot. I'm curious, kind of, could you relay in more detail the journey of what ended up leading you to decide to start this venture? Because if I understand correctly, you've also done another B2B venture that was a marketplace for major agriculture producers of food. Could you just walk me through a little bit more of that background and kind
Sure,
of
sure,
what your
sure.
motivation
Okay.
was?
That's you mentioned that already. This marketplace which we were running between US and Europe, exporting the specialty crops like dry beans from North Dakota to the markets like it. Example, uh, that's where I learned about the requirements from the retailers, from the large retailers in Europe on CO2 reduction plan or action plan on a CO2 reduction with CO2 reduction focus on a farm level. And that's when I was thinking that that's an opportunity for electric tractors, but I knew that large or traditional tractor makers won't do this without basically must need of that's basically a little bit offset of the business model that traditional tractor companies have, which is heavily the aftermarket. And in electric tractors, the aftermarket business is much smaller as we have less parts, right? I mentioned, and then these parts are also like uh, the suppliers of these parts are the companies which are not in tractor business, basically, right? For example,
Mhm.
NVIDIA. Then it's yeah, so it's different parts, different business model.
Okay, got it. So it was through seeing that need to lower carbon reduction, especially it sounds like throughout the European kind of forward thinking about reducing carbon, because again, it was a lot further ahead than the US, for example. That's how you saw the
That
opportunity and start developing it?
Yes, that's exactly right. And I have also farming background, and I had myself cases when we could not find the drivers for all our tractors, right? And
Mm,
this is like, I think that part was obvious, and it's obvious for everyone, but it wasn't possible because the auto industry invested so much time and capital to make uh, some technologies available for everyone, like, for example, LiDAR, which was heavily supported by the auto industry to get it at the right price, the right range, and to guarantee the safe operations, right? And same with the lithium ion, right? In last 3 decades, the price, I think, of the kilowatt of lithium ion battery drawn down by 98% in the last 3 decades. So I think that all together made it possible.
yeah, that's true. Obviously, every industry helps build upon the next. So, also, in general, with the journey of ZTractor, it sounds like you guys are about 3 years old currently, correct?
Yep, it's a bit more than
Yep.
3 years.
A little more three. Okay. So what has been, what have been the biggest challenges of growing this company in general?
There are so many when you do something like ZTractor and the product. You have software, you have hardware, and you have a product. And it's hard to say one which was the biggest problem, but I think overall the uh, getting to understand the customer, that was a challenge because every farmer has own approach to their operations, their farm operations, and to make sure that the feature you are adding and you think it's a priority feature, and you spend, if it's like software, you can either spend 6 months developing it, this
Yeah.
feature will be really useful, right? And we have done some features which we realized later that it was not the priority, and we should not be doing, for example, something like voice communication with Tractor, right? We spent some time doing like developing software on that, but that's not a top priority today. But one farmer was thinking that that's a good idea to have, and we jumped on
Yeah.
it. We were doing this, but we never completed it. Maybe sometimes in the future we will, and it will be useful for that perspective. But I think this allocation of resources is very important at the beginning, and to do only things which are must and basically mandatory in some cases for tractor operations, right? And even if you feel that that's a cool idea, let's do that. I think that everything cool can wait. Everything functional is a priority. That would be my summary
Yeah,
on
that's, I feel like that's a good way to put it.
problem discovery and yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Also generally, I'm curious. I've been curious in terms of financing. So when developing this, obviously it takes money up front to do this. What was your experience working with investors? Did you find initially that people were really open to hearing about what you had to offer? Were there a lot of challenges and things you had to get in line first before they would invest? I'm curious about that.
Look, our first investors were the people from the automotive industry, and they have done some work in autonomy, right? Or like self-driving vehicles and autopilot features and things like that. And they knew the complexity, and they know the complexity of the highway self-driving versus off-road self-driving, right? And I think the pitch to them was very straightforward. We want to do same like you are trying to do on a highway, but in a private property with a much lower speed and work only in a good weather. So I think this was few sentence speech to them, to angel investors at the beginning. Of course, we had more to work with our institutional investors, but to angel investors at the beginning, that was a pitch, right? And uh, electric self-driving was basically what I think helped us to raise capital at a very early stage.
Got it. And my understanding is that ZTractor is one of the first, if not the first, to really significantly get pretty far into the development of this. Is that correct?
I think we are first, and we were first in 2017 when we started, because this is the only company which was started with the purpose to build autonomous electric tractor, right? There are traditional tractor companies which try to make the concept in the space in Europe and US, but they're traditional tractor companies with 100-year legacy, and we started from scratch. Probably the only tractor company which was started from scratch the last 10 years or maybe even more, right? I
Yeah,
don't know,
for
maybe
sure.
even goes back
Similar to the
uh,
auto industry. Yeah.
last one for 90. Yeah. So I think in that sense, we are first from revenue perspective. We are last today, but
Yeah.
there is hope that that first we see the demand, and it shows us that we are on the right path. One, but second, and I think most important, is customer satisfaction. We see that customers who are trying our tractor, and they are so excited after the opportunity to drive it. They want to leave it in the farm. But right now, we are doing demos. We cannot leave it in every farm where we have demand, and we go to the roadshow across California, other states. But yeah, this is, I think, the most important.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, we're getting towards the end here. I'm always curious from people like yourself who've been first in industry, and you've obviously have great experience. What do you see as the trends on some of just at large in the clean tech sector, maybe specifically within clean agriculture? What do you see as the biggest areas for growth in general? Like, what are some things that you're super excited to see develop and expand over the next 10 years?
Uh, I would say three things which will really reshape and change agriculture are first, of course, automation on every level in a farm, after farm, down the line to the supply chain. Automation, right? Of tractor, of packaging line, of everything. Second, I think it's the alternative sources of protein or alter foods like Impossible Burger or some proteins which are taken now from the mealworm, right? Those things will really change our understanding of what is the best source to produce protein, and then what's the best source to consume protein or get protein, right? So this is second, and I think this the fastest growing agriculture domain today is probably this indoor farming, which is farming in the building with no pesticides in most of the cases. I think that's more controlled environment farming. That's a big step forward in predicting production.
Very good. Yeah, I think it's interesting. Companies like App Harvest are really interesting to me as well. Maybe one other thing, since you've gone and you've been able to do this successfully a few times, what would you say to encourage, if there's any, potential aspiring entrepreneurs in the clean tech space, the clean agriculture space, what would your advice be to them as they start and, begin to encounter these challenges?
I myself need the advices from the smart people in the space, but what I can say, it's worth trying, because that industry must change in many aspects, because we need to produce more food even next year, right? It's not sometimes we say it's like 2050 or 2030 goal, but even next year we need to produce more food with less chemicals, less water, less arable land or the territory, and did I mention water, right? And with less labor. So I think that's already here. It's a reality. It's not tomorrow's challenge, it's today's challenge. And I think there are so many great ideas which can be converted into great businesses. And I see the really growing number of very promising startups, at least in Silicon Valley, in the space of AgTech.
What are some of, if you don't mind me asking, what are some of the ones that you find interesting? I'm always curious, who's kind of accelerating really quickly, aside from ZTractor, of course.
There are companies which are doing like quick delivery. For example, the company in New York just raised, I think, if I'm not mistaken, 20 million. So their concept is 15-minute delivery, like it's instant delivery of the food. So it's a grocery at your phone, basically, right? So it's called Fridge No More. So I think they had one of the fastest growth. They raised first capital at the middle of last year, and then raised a really big round in a few months. So I think this type of innovations, which is rethinking of the food consumption, are very useful, and that's why you have a fast customer growth and then customer base and then fast growth. So I think those, I should say, was very impressive to me to see how fast they raised rounds for agriculture, e-commerce. I mean, it's e-commerce, but at the same time, it's agriculture, food industry. It's quite phenomenal.
Very good. Very good. Well, yeah, I appreciate we're out of time now, but I really, really do appreciate coming on. It's been super interesting to learn about what you guys are doing. I'm very excited to see as you continue to grow. Hopefully we'll have you on maybe in a year or so once you guys are, up and running and probably even bigger in the news.
Let's do that. Thank you so much. Thank you for the
thanks, Bakur.
It was really a pleasure to listen.
Yeah, very good. Thank you so much. You have a good rest of your day. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode with Bakur. I hope you really enjoyed it as much as I did shooting it. Again, he has so many cool things to talk about. I'd definitely love to hear your thoughts about what you found interesting, things you'd like to learn more about. I'm definitely going to aim to have him back on the podcast in the future. So please do drop those thoughts or those questions you'd like to learn more about. Do go follow ZTractor on LinkedIn, and follow Bakur on Twitter. All those links will be in the bio. And again, want to take a quick break to mention our sponsors, Next Wave Partners. Next Wave Partners is a specialist premier recruitment service that focuses on renewable energy, technology, and clean tech throughout the world in all major markets. And I think, one thing specifically that Next Wave can be very valuable is for a lot of younger companies that are growing, don't really have an internal recruitment team or an HR. Next Wave can act as that partner to help grow and to get into that stage where it's a more stable business. So reach out to info@nextwave, next-wavepartners.com for more information about that. I also want to, again, remind people, if you are interested in, if this is your first time joining the podcast, please do subscribe and share it with your friends, share it with people who are interested in this space. Again, the whole purpose of this is to help other people learn about the cool things that are going on in the space, as there's so many. As well as, if you're interested, please do join the Slack channel, CleanTechies, the Slack channel, in order to just be more involved and get a little bit more inside scoop. It's still a new channel, but lots of interesting things can happen there and will happen there in the future. We want to foster innovation in the space, getting people to be able to connect through there. And there's a lot of resources that I share in there too. But yes, thanks so much for listening again today, guys, and we will see you next time.